Hi, Dave Koch here. We're going to have a little instructional video on how to lay this tile. So you already have all your kits, and I went through that in the last Zoom meeting what we had, but just real quickly, we have our tubs of thin set, and then marked thin set, our tub of grout. We've got a sponge here. We've got a grout float. Not everybody has a grout float like this. A couple people have grout floats like this. It'll work the same. We've got our notch trowel. We've got a straight edge. We've got a little putty knife. And we've got a drop cloth. And we've got some tile spacers. And then we have the tile. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to spread out our drop cloth and open up our tile and take a look at those. Okay, now we have our board down about in the middle of the drop cloth and put one of our tubs of thin set there. Now on our tile, go ahead and just unwrap it and unwrap everything. So we have two sizes. We have the 2x2s. And then we have the 2x4s. I'd go ahead and put the 2x4s on the other side of the board. And we'll unwrap our last 2x2s. Okay, so those are our 2x2s, and you should have around 42 of them. And we'll see. Not everybody has the same tile. The majority of you have a tile that looks like this. It's a gray-green tile, which is what I'm going to be working with today. Some of you have a brown tile that looks like this, and then these are both stone tiles or slate tiles. And some of you have a granite tile that looks like this. They're all the same size. The only difference is the granite tiles are all exactly the same thickness and will be easier to lay. The stone tiles, the slate tiles, will be a little more difficult to lay because they're different thicknesses. So, one of the things that we need to do here is identify our thickest tile. And you have to look at them on the edge and kind of pick out the one that you think is just about thick. Set him aside. Because we're going to use that to set our height with. What I want to do first, before we use the thin set to lay in, is lay in a coarse dry of both the 2x2s and the 2x4s, just to see how that's going to work. And you'll need to use your spacers. These tiles are all cut to fit a 3/16 spacer and then go board to board. So on these spacers, they look like little crosses, and the dimension you want is this cross this way. That's the 3/16. If you turn it sideways, it's 1/8. And so we want it so the cross is the thickest part of the cross. It's going to work as a spacer. So I'm going to take these tiles. just going to lay them in like that. Now you can see I don't have quite enough room because I haven't really put my spaces in, and I'm too loose on my grout joint. So I'm going to put my spacers in. And there we have it. The edge of the frame, you just need to have some room, and that's kind of going to be what we use to take up any slack we have. So that's our 7 tiles. No, it's not 7 tiles. It's 9 tiles. And I'm going to just put my straight edge there and kind of get them all sort of in line. And that's what that's going to look like when we use a thin set. And the reason you do that is just to make sure that you're in it to fit inside the frame you're working with. So on this 2x4s, we're going to do the same thing just to get an idea. And with these 2x4s, they have 4 full ones, and then you have a half. And it may be that you have to use the thin edge of the spacer to make this work. And I'm a little tight here. Yeah, we'll go that way. So that's the lower course. And what we're trying to get to is we're going to have 4 courses of the 2x2 on the top half, and then 5 courses of the 2x4 on the bottom half. And this is not laid in thin set; it's just dry fit there, and that's effectively what we're trying to get to there. That being all done, I'm going to pick all these up. And we'll get started. So the thing about thin set is it's a cementatious product, and when it's wet, it's easy to wash off and keep clean with water. Once it dries, it's harder. So what I'm going to do here is open my thin set up, use my putty knife to take out about that much and kind of go across the top. And then I'm just going to cover that up there. And then I'm going to take this notch trowel. You guys all have one of them. Now you have square notches in your trowel. I have V notches. That's because that's what I had. The square notches are what you want. And I'm going to just kind of spread this like you were spreading cake out. And you can see my little grooves here. And I'm coming all the way to the edge of the cement board, the hardy back. And I'm holding my trowel not quite straight up and down, but it, pretty close to it. Okay, now put that there. So on the thickest tile we talked about, so we could put that down first and build up to it. This is going to be a little tricky on some of the stuff because you can see the varying thicknesses we have in the tile. I'll get my spacers all out here. And I'm just going to set this guy in here. And then I'm going to set another one. And just by using my fingers, I'm going to feel how close that is to being flush. And it's a little off, but I'm going to live with that. I'm going to put a spacer in. And I'm pressing down pretty firmly with my fingers as I get this in there. You want to give yourself, now here's a thin tile here, so I know he's going to be too thin, so I'm going to take my putty knife, or my little trowel here, and I'm going to put a dab of thinset on the back. And then I won't press him down as hard. I'll press him so he's solid, but I'll press him so he's the same height. There's another little thin guy, so I'm going to put a little less on him. And if you put it in there and it's too low, you can just pick it up and spread a little more thinset on the back. I'm a little tight on that, so we're just going to kind of scoot everything this way a little bit. Now, if you have to take a spacer out to get it so they fit correctly, then just take a spacer out. You want to move it just a little bit so you don't see any difference. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put the spacer in here sideways with the 1/8 inch, not the 3/16. And that'll be fine. Okay, so that's our first course done. Now we're going to take our straight edge. And if you can keep the straight edge out of the thinset, it's better. If you get thinset on, it's no big deal. Just use your sponge and a little bit of water and wipe it clean. So I'm just going to line everything up here. Good there. I'm going to take it, I'm going to put it on the top here and make sure that I'm kind of level. I'm kind of level. So we're going to call that good. So now we'll start the next course. Just lining him up with the one above it. And we're going to want to put a spacer at the top to get that spacing. And as you're doing this, pay attention to your corners, that all four of those corners are in the right position, that they're not pushing into that intersection. It's also important to keep pushing these tight against the spacers and not having any gap there. And you have, several minutes to move these around in the thin set if you see something that isn't quite right. Okay, and there's our second row completed. We have spaces everywhere. And as I mentioned on the first course, if you need to turn the spacer in sideways to get a little extra room, you go ahead and do that. We can take our straight edge, and I'm holding it up against there, and a couple of these I'm going to scoot down till they touch it. Kind of happy with that. I'm going to put it here. And I see one that's real low, so I'm going to have to pull him, this guy right there, and get a little more thin set on the back side of him. Put him back in again. It's going to be important when we're grouting this to have them as level as possible and not have steps in them. And I'm happy with that. Okay, so now I'm going to add more thin set to our frame and use our notch trowel once again and spread it out. We've got two more courses of the 2x2s. I don't want to spread much past where I'm working because it'll dry out and it'll be a problem later when we do our next course. So I only do about 2 courses at a time as far as where I'm spreading my thin set. And the width of your notch trowel here is about 2 inches. I'm sorry, it's about 4 inches. And it's about what we're using to do 2 courses. So I kind of use that as a gauge. smeared some over on this edge here. I'm just going to clean that off a little bit. Clean that off. Okay, we're going to start again here, back on our corner. Thin one here. Now, you'll find that not all the tiles are exactly the same size. That's because I cut them all. And, if you find one that's a little small or a little big, just kind of split the difference and give and take a little bit on each side till you get it where you want it to. What you want to make sure is that you are lining up with the tiles above it. So even if the spacer is either too tight or too big, register off the one above to make sure you're lined up there. Even if the spacer pushes it off, then you just have to adjust to your back in position with the course above it. Okay, so there's our third course here. We're going to straight edge them on this. Going to scooch everybody down so we've got the reveal. Go across the top, and once again I have a little one there. It's a good idea to have a little rag or a paper towel or something to keep wiping your hands off when you get thinset on them, because you will get thinset on them. Okay, and I can live with that. So now we got one more course of the 2x2s, and that I see he's going to be low, so we're just going to give him a little pat right there. Okay, so now I'm out of spacers, and you will be too, because you only got so many. So I'm going to take my spacers from that first course, because we're done with it. And just reuse these. I've got kind of a big tile here, so I'm having to adjust it. Don't get too hung up on trying to get spacers everywhere. Again, the tiles are a little bit different. I apologize for that. What's important is you keep lining up with the tile above you. Because if you keep lining up with the tile above you, you'll end up in the right place. Okay, and now our last one is a little thin. There. Straight in there. Look, and we are close enough. Okay, so now we're going to do the 2x4s and run those the same way. So same thing. We're going to spread some thin set. And this is why you have 2 tubs of thin set, because one tub is not going to be enough. And the same tap trowel here. We're going to get our little notches, spread out evenly over the same height. Okay, I just want to check something. I just made this board the other day, and I didn't totally do the measurements on it. Right? Yeah. So here we go. We're gonna start out with the 2x4s. Now they should line up. They should line up with the tiles above it. These ones are not quite lining up. And we're not going to worry about that. If we can get them all in the board, we're going to call that good. And then I use a 2x2 at the end. And the boards that you guys have are about a 1/4 inch bigger than mine. I cut mine the other night and I missed on one of the measurements. So mine are tighter than yours are going to be. You should have a little more room in here to do this. Okay, so we ended with a 2x2. So now we're gonna start with a 2x2 here. And I'm not using spaces in here because I'm too tight. But I believe you guys will be able to use the spacers. So I'm having to adjust it a little bit because my frame is a little tight. As you can see, I have a very small grout joint there. But same process, we're going to straight edge, make sure they're all on there. Put that on there, and they're all pretty close. Okay, so now I'm going to spread some more thin set. Now I've only got 3/4 left to do, so I'm going to go ahead and spread everything there. Use the rest of this, and then I will open up the other tub. Now with this last bit, you'll need to take off any excess you have before we're able just to slide it down the frame. But this is what we got now. Okay, so now we can start back with our 2x4 here. You'll notice on a lot of the tiles they have saw marks on the back, and so you want to make sure you pick your best side. And so this pattern here, is called running bond, and it's the same that you would, bricks are laid in running bond. This pattern up here is called a grid pattern for obvious reasons. It's like a grid. Little guy needs a little touch on the back. And if your board allows it, go ahead and put the spacers in. I'm not putting them on these joints. These are called the head joints because I don't have enough room. And I'm concerned that I don't have enough room this way, which is I'm not putting spacers that way, but we'll see. Okay, so now we'll go back to our 2x2 to start out the second to last course. And I'm just going to take a little tile here and put him in there to make sure that he's going to fit. He is. A thin piece here, so I'll have to back butter them, is what that term is called. These are the saw marks I was telling you about. On a lot of the tiles are on the back side. This is the finished side. So just make sure that you put this side down. Okay, once again, we're going to straight edge. There, that's pretty flat. And now we'll do our last course. And most of my material is a little thin. I may have to back butter each one of these tiles. Put a little tinsel on the back of this guy. Play. And there's the last one. So, excuse me one second here. Occasionally when you back butter your tile and you press it down into place, you'll get some thin set that comes up in between the joints. So it's important to get that out of there before it sets up. You can use a little stick, a little knife. I just use a pencil, and I put that in there, and right with a drop cloth, and get that out. And I've got another little spot right here, and I want to get out. This will get in the way of when we're grouting, so we want to make sure we get that all clear. A little spot there. So that's what we're shooting for, something like that. And on the next session, we'll go over grouting. This needs to set up for 24 hours, and that's what we're going to do. Okay, talk to you next time.